Okay, let's go. Okay, this is a very famous letter from the Rebbe Rashab. We also even have the English, look at that, it fit on the page. This is at the beginning of a Yemir. In the year, well actually it says what year, where is it? There we go, you see the Kislev, 16th of Kislev, just taka today.
Yeah.
There you go, Tzashkocha Pratis. In the year 5662, which is Tafresh Samach base, which was 1901. So the Rebbe Rashab was stuck in Moscow on Yud Tes Kislev. He was involved in some community work and was in Moscow and couldn't make it back to Lubavitch for Yud Tes Kislev. So he wrote this letter. The letter arrived. It arrived 8:30 at night, Yud Tes Kislev, and the Farbrengen was starting at 9:30, I think. It arrived very close to Yud Tes Kislev. And the Frierdiker Rebbe read, now this is only part of the letter, it's a longer letter. This is the part that was printed in Hayemi, which starts on Yud Tes Kislev, right? And this is the letter where the Rebbe Rashab tells us that Yud Tes Kislev is Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus. It's from this letter that idea came. That caused quite a shturim amongst the religious community, which was basically, I mean, that's who there was in those days, right? And most of the Yidden were still frum. It is a famous story of Chaim Eizer Gruzinski was the Av Beis Din of Vilna. He was a huge guy. I mean, like the real thing. And he was very, very favorably disposed to the Chassidim. He himself was a Litvak Mamash, like the real thing, a real Litvak, but was not in any way, shape, or form a Misnagid. Wasn't an opponent of Chassidus in any way, shape, or form, and had a good relationship with the Chassidish Rebbeim, because obviously they were all involved together in running Jewish affairs in Europe. And there were millions and millions and millions of Jews in Europe. He at that time, Vilna, this is the turn of the century, right? I guess I have to say which century now, right? When growing up, you didn't have to say which century, so now you have to say which one, because it's been around a while, I guess, seen the century turn. So when I grew up, and when Izzy grew up, when you said turn of the century, you meant 1900, okay? Now I guess you mean 2000. At the turn of the century, the beginning of the 20th century, so modernity was starting to affect Vilna. And this was a battle of Rav Chaim Eizer. And I'm telling you this because it's part of the story. This was a battle that he was involved in terms of the Frum community. People were still very into learning, but their observance of Torah mitzvahs was not what he thought it should be. Today, that's not the case in the Litvische Welt. They're extremely frum. In those days, basically, if you learned, that was it, and then they davened, but the anything else other than learning was hard to make happen, and this was one of his battles, and one of the Rabbanim on the Beis Din of Vilna, there's papers in the middle of that table. One of the Rabbanim from the Beis Din of Vilna came in with this letter of the Rebbe Rashab and was ridiculing the letter in front of Rav Chaim Eizer. And Rav Chaim Eizer said, and evidently, I have no clue what this Rav's name was, evidently he was himself, his learning was a lot greater than his Yerushalayim, let's put it that way. He was a big Talmud Chacham, but it was obviously frum, right? We have to put it in perspective. We're not talking about people who aren't frum, right? But people whose Yerushalayim wasn't something they talked about or were interested in. So he came into Rav Chaim Eizer with the letter and was making fun of the letter, and Rav Chaim Eizer is reported to have said, "They're adding," and worse. What was his claim? Look at these Chassidim. They're adding another Rosh Hashanah. The Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah says, Arba Rosh Hashanah. There are 4 Rosh Hashanahs. It's the first Mishnah in Maseches Rosh Hashanah. It talks about the 4 Rosh Hashanahs. Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah for kings, Rosh Hashanah for Meiser, etc. So different dates of the year are different Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Rosh Chodesh Adar, Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. So Rosh Chodesh Shvat, Rosh Hashanah for the trees, According to Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel says the 15th of Shvat. So there's 4 Rosh Hashanahs in that Mishnah. And he was making fun of the Chassidim. Look, the Chassidim all of a sudden they found the 5th Rosh Hashanah. And Reb Chaim Ozer was evidently reported to have said, "Oi, they're adding and we're subtracting." That was his response to that. And he wasn't taken by the attempt to make fun of the Chassidim. He was impressed by the fact that the Chassidim are adding things. So it's this letter where the Rebbe Rashab tells us that Yud Tes Kislev is Rosh Hashanah. Again, it's a longer letter. This is just part of the letter. You can now find the letter because the egress of the Rebbe Rashab have been printed. So you can find the letter in the assorted letters of the collected letters of the Rebbe Rashab.
So he's writing this letter to his father?
No, the Rebbe Rashab is writing this he's sent it to Lubavitch. He was not in Lubavitch. He was in Moscow.
Okay.
On communal business. So he sent it to his son, the Rebbe Rayatz, who was running the affairs while he was gone. And the Rebbe Rayatz read this letter at the Farbrengen on Yud Tes Kislev in Lubavitch. And there was, evidently, you can read about it. It's interesting, very interesting, how these things work. The Chassidim were extremely excited when they got the letter from the Rebbe and were dancing and singing after the reading of the letter, etc. And the part you'll see, it's really quite an astounding letter. You have it also in English, if that's helpful. So my translation, I'll do my best to translate with all the fancy words in the English, but we'll see what happens. And if I make a mistake, so you can politely correct me and say, no, Rabbi, that word is inwardness. I don't think I'm going to use that word. I saw it here. Inwardness of the souls. I don't think I'm going to use that word, but I'll probably say panemius, because that's the word you guys know anyway. I didn't even notice that the letter's dated today. Right, the letter's dated today 122 years ago. 23 years ago. 1901. Right? Because their calendar had not yet changed, right? Just like they're still in 24 and we're already in 85. Okay? Kislev is November, December time. Okay. Yud Tes Kislev. Hachag asher poda b'shalom nafshenu, so that we obviously do not have to discuss because Baruch Hashem, we learned a mimer about that. The Yom Tov that our soul was redeemed in peace. V'or v'chayis nafshenu, and the light and the vitality of our soul, nitan lana, was given to us. Hayom hazeh hu Rosh Hashanah ladach. This is Rosh Hashanah for Chassidus. Ladach means divrei Elokim chayim, which is an acronym for Chassidus. Pnimius Torah. Right? And again, that idea is that this is a new idea. The Rebbe Rashab is saying this. No one said that until this letter. That was one of the chidushim of this letter. Rosh Hashanah, and that certainly helps us understand. I mean, you might have noticed, right? Hayom Yom starts on Yud Tes Kislev. It does not start on Aleph Tishrei. The year of Hayom Yom starts on Yud Tes Kislev. Hayom Yom is the first book our Rebbe wrote. It was written by our Rebbe in Tafshin Gimel, 1943. Now, when the Rebbe writes it from the point of Hayom Yom, from the point of view of the Frierdiker Rebbe. So when he says "my father," he's quoting the Frierdiker Rebbe, talking about the Rebbe Rashab, right? But the Rebbe wrote Hayom Yom. Asher hinchilanu, that they bequeathed to us. Oh, see that? I got that one right. Bequeathed to us. Aveseinu HaKadoshim, our holy fathers. Now, when the Rebbe says Aveseinu here, he means the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid and the other Chassidish Rebbeim. He's not talking about Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov, but obviously they're also Aveseinu. They're the Aveseinu with the capital Aleph. But in Al Pi Chassidus, who are Aveseinu, the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid, first 2 generations of Chassidus. Right? Zecher Tzadik v'Kodesh l'Chaye Elam Haba. That's the Zaksakukel, okay? Nishmasam, they're talking about people. Nishmasam, their neshama should be in Eden. Schusam, their merit should guard us. Vehi Teres Baal Shem Tov. And this is the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. Now, when the Rebbe says Aveseinu, that's interesting. Does he mean, but it's interesting, there's a footnote here. Okay, so if you look at footnote 2, it's cut off, but it's pretty clear that whoever wrote the footnote thinks, whether he's right or not, I'm not sure. Although when it says identical with the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, that seems to indicate that the Baal Shem Tov is not included in that list of Aveseinu. In other words, Aveseinu would start with the Alter Rebbe, right? The Alter Rebbe and the Mittler Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek and the Reb Marash, the father of the one writing this letter, right? Again, the author of this letter is the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Rebbe. So Aveseinu could include the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid or not. Whoever wrote the footnote clearly thinks it doesn't, because it's the, and obviously he means the founders of Chabad is what it must say over there, right? But it is true, Vahihi Torah Baal Shem Tov, the fact that it says this is the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov seems to indicate that we're not talking about the Baal Shem Tov himself, we're talking about people who are teaching the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. Now the Rebbe says something quite astounding, right? And there are many Maimarim on Rosh Hashanah that begin with the next 4 words, because the next 4 words are part of Musaf and Rosh Hashanah, and I believe this year we actually learned a Maimer Zeh Yom Tchilas Masecha in here, right? Zeh Yom Tchilas Masecha. This is the day, the beginning of your deeds. Right? Now that refers simply to Rosh Hashanah, right? And the question is asked in Chassidus why Rosh Hashanah is the beginning, because it's not really the beginning, it's the 6th day, which is the end. It's the last day of creation, not the first day of creation. So why is it called Tchilas Masecha? Chassidus explains that. And we learned the Maimer and the Rebbe from the Rebbe, I think Tafshin Lamed Gimel, where the Rebbe explains that. Right? But there are, interesting enough, there are Maimarim of the Rebbeim, of the Frierdiker Rebbe and our Rebbe, Zeh Yom Tchilas Masecha, which are Maimarim that were said in Yud Tes Kislev, based on this line in this letter. This day is the beginning of your deeds. What does that mean? Shleimus hakavana hamitis bebrias ha'adam alei aretz. The ultimate completion of the true intention of the creation of people on this earth. What's that intention? Lahamshich gilui or, to draw down the revelation of the light of Pnimius Taraseinu HaKadesha, the Pnimius of our holy Torah. Right? I mean, what's our job down here? To reveal Elokus. Where is Elokus revealed? In Torah. Where is Elokus most powerfully revealed? In Pnimius of Torah. The ultimate purpose of creation is to bring about a revelation of Elokus in Eilam Hazeh. How do you and I bring about a revelation of Elokus in Eilam Hazeh? We bring about that revelation first in our own conscious reality, that we're conscious of Elokus very powerfully. How do we become conscious of Elokus? We learn Chassidus, so that Elokus is bouncing around in our heads. So we have something to say about the Eibishter. We have something to think about, right? Which is actually one of the reasons why the question is asked, and we've talked about it in different forms. The Eibishter, when he created the world, could have created the world in any way possible, and in no way, shape, or form did the Eibishter require all of those intermediate levels of infinite godly light, etc., and metaphysical worlds, godly worlds, Atzilus, metaphysical worlds, Bria, Yetzirah. All of that is not absolutely necessary. Right? It's everything that exists outside of the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu exists solely, and we saw this in Mayim Rabim when we learned Mayim Rabim, exists solely because of the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Eibishter wants that level of reality to exist. There is nothing that is absolutely necessary except the Eibishter himself. And when we say the Eibishter himself, we mean Atzmus. Every level of godly light exists because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants that level of godly light to exist. It doesn't have to exist. Right? Does it serve a function in the downward emanation of godly light? So ultimately you end up from the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu through infinite light into light that can be clothed in vessels and express itself in a finite form, till you end up with metaphysical finitude, until you end up with physical finitude, and you have slugs on the sidewalk leaving slime. Yes, there's definitely this whole process. Absolutely. Is it necessary? No. Could the essence of God create a world where there's slugs on a sidewalk leaving slime? Yes. Are all those levels in between necessary? No. When you and I learn about it in Chassidus, we'll often talk about this level is necessary in order for this level to. Now, why is that? Because Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted it that way. It's true that's now that it's done, that's how it works. It didn't have to be done that way. How many fingers do you have? 10. Is that true? Yes. Do you have to have 10? No. What if God created you with 8? Or 9? Or 11? or 12. We assume they'll be even. Okay, fine. But maybe not. Maybe God likes left-handed people and he'll give them 6 fingers on the left hand and only 5 on the right hand. Could he do that? He can do whatever he wants. Right? Why did he do what he did? Okay, so you might say, in your metaphysical, sensitive way that, there's 10 spheres, so we have 10 fingers. Okay, that's probably true. Why are there 10 spheres? Why aren't there 8? Why aren't there 12? Why aren't there 32? There's 32 gates of Chokhmah, paths of Chokhmah. Why aren't there 10? I don't know. Because the Eibishter decided that there's going to be 10 spheres. That's what he decided. Why? God, 10. Sounds good. Right? And so you and I count in base 10. And I assume if there were 8 spheres, we'd count in base 8. We'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. One group of 8s and 0 units. I assume, right? I mean, wouldn't that be reasonable? And if we had 12 fingers, we'd have 2 more numbers in between 9 and 10. Because it would be something, and then 10. What's 10? One group of 12s and 0 units. That's how we'd count, right? Why not? We have 12 fingers. Right? What's holy about 10? Nothing's holy about 10 except that Kadosh Baruch Hu made 10 holy because he wanted to. Why? I don't know. That's what he decided. Okay. And everything is a function of that Ratzon. So all of those different levels of godly light, ultimately, why do they exist? One of the reasons given is what we just saw. That you and I can actually sit and contemplate godliness. We can learn about it, think about it, talk about it, forbring about it. If all there were was Atzmus and us, what would we talk about? Every forbringing would be Leis Machshavat Tisabei. There's no thought that can comprehend Atzmus and pass the crackers and the mashka, and then we drink ourselves into oblivion and then fall asleep. I don't know. What would you forbring about? Right? Would Avedas Hashem be the same? Who knows? I mean, we can't possibly imagine that. The Rebbe Shab actually, in certain Maimarim, in Ayin Base, in certain Maimarim, the Rebbe talks about what if this level of Elokus didn't exist? It's crazy. What would the next level look like? Well, okay, is that absolutely necessary? No, meaning based on the way it works, that this level is necessary for this level to look a certain way. So if this level didn't exist, then this level would look something different, and then that would emanate down. Okay. Could the Eibishter create a world that looks exactly like our world without all the intermediate steps? Yes, he can do whatever he wants. So, why did he? Why all those steps? A lot of it has to do with the fact that you and I can actually reveal godliness in our own consciousness by discussing him, learning about him, learning about different levels of godly reality, or mamale, or sevev, light that fills, light that expresses itself through finite kalim, light that's infinite and can't be expressed in finite kalim, upper levels, lower levels. There's so much to talk about, we can't possibly get to the end of it. What does that mean? We're revealing godliness in the world. Why? Well, because our conscious reality is part of the world. And if we reveal godliness in our conscious reality, then we're revealing godliness in the world. Because it's not like we live in the world, we're part of the world. Right? We're as much a part of the world as the oak tree. Not like the oak tree in the ground of the world and we're in it. Well, no. As long as we are here, we're as much part of the world as the oak tree. Because the oak tree also disappears at some point. Right? It lives a little longer than us, but at some point the oak tree is going to disappear. It'll rot and disappear, just like we rot and disappear. Okay, the physical part of us. We're little. We don't live as long as them. Ants aren't part of the world. I don't know. What is it? The fruit fly? It lives one day. Is that the fly? Is one day? He packs a lot into that one day. How many people he can annoy in that one day? Amazing, right? Okay. Why do the Eibishter want a fruit fly to be around for one day? I don't know. Whatever. Godly energy is imbued in the existence of that thing, just like he's imbued in the existence of you. You're not a fruit fly. You're a lot much more important. But okay, say there's a part of us that's also just another fruit fly. Just another thing that the Eibishter created, buzzing around. Why? Shleimus hakavana amitis bebrias adam. That's an amazing thing to say. What's all of creation about? Yud Tes Kislev. That Chassidus should be revealed. Now, we have to understand why that's connected to Yud Tes Kislev, but let's finish the paragraph first. Lahamshi gilui or pnimius taraseinu k'desh asher nimshach b'yom hazeh, that it was drawn down on this day. Yud Tes Kislev is somehow connected to that idea. I mean, the Rebbe's not saying this because we picked the day and said, let's make this Rosh Hashanah. There's something very unique about Yud Tes Kislev, such that it's the day that is the beginning of the fulfillment of the purpose of creation. Just like the sixth day of creation, which is the day that we say this about, on the sixth day of creation, which is Rosh Hashanah, right? We celebrate day one is day 6. Right? Day one of our year is day 6 of creation. Creation started on Chaf Elul, the 25th day of Elul, and culminated on the first day of Tishrei. Okay, and we say this is the first day. Why? Well, because what was it all about? It was all about there being people and Olam Hazeh serving the Eibishter. That's what it was all about. And when did that start? That started on day 6. So Zeh Yom Tchilas Ma'asecha, meaning the stage was being set, but the curtain only opened on the world on the day 6 of creation, because now there's someone there who's supposed to be doing whatever is supposed to be done. There were animals there, and there were birds there, and there were rivers there, but ultimately there had to be people there. Okay, so there was a world, and there was Torah, and there was all. But what ultimately had to be? It had to be Chassidus. Why is that particularly relevant to Yud Tes Kislev? So we'll talk about that in a minute. Asher nimshach b'yom hazeh b'bechinas hamshacha klolus. It's a drawing down of godliness, Chassidus, in a general way, al klolus Hashanah, and it's relevant to the whole year. Just like Rosh Hashanah. Everything follows the Rosh. The bracha that you draw down to yourself in Rosh Hashanah is the bracha that you partake of the whole year. Valenu, and it is upon us, laha'ir levavenu, to awaken our hearts, b'yom hazeh, on this day, b'bechinas chayfetz v'rotzen pnimi, through an inner will and desire and will, pnimi va'atzmi, and essential, ba'amitis nekudas levavenu, in the true point of our heart, nekudas alev, the pintel yid, Sheya'er nafshenu ba'or pnimis tarasa yizbarach, that it should shine our souls in the light of the inner workings of Torah. Pnimis. Now, why dafka Yud Tes Kislev? What does Yud Tes Kislev got to do with it? Okay, so simple pshat. I mean, there's more to it. If we have time, we'll talk about that. But simple pshat. The Alter Rebbe was in jail because he was spreading too much Torah. I mean, that's there was obviously a revealed aspect to the whole thing, right? And that there was slander against the Alter Rebbe, and the Russian authorities arrested him and took him away in the black carriage, which was a sign of that this was a person who would probably be sentenced to the opposite of life, and he was taken away. He came out of that, but we know what happened while he was in jail. At a certain point, and he told us the story, right? Not us, but us. I mean, we heard it, so it got to us. That while the Alter Rebbe was in jail, so the Maggid and the Baal Shem Tov came to visit him, and he asked them, "Why am I here?" And they said, "Because of the Fatzas of Mayanot, because you're spreading too much. You're spreading Chassidus." They didn't say too much. You're spreading Chassidus. So he asked them. And they told him he was going to get out. That he'll be okay. So he asked, so when I get out, should I stop? And they said, no, you should do it with greater fervor, even more. Meaning there's been a din Torah above as to whether or not the time is ripe for this Torah to be revealed, and the decision has been yes. So spread it even more, and that's why Chassidim talk about before Peterburg and after Peterburg. The type of Torah, the nature of the Torah that the Alter Rebbe taught before he was arrested, and the nature of the Chassidus that he taught after was much more explanation afterwards. Much more. Before it was shorthand. Maimarim Ketzarim was actually a sefer called Maimarim Ketzarim of the Alter Rebbe. Very short little Maimarim. Right? Afterwards, explaining things much more. Tanya had already been written. Tanya was written 2 years before the Rebbe was arrested. So, when the Frierdiker Rebbe, as a messenger of the Rebbe Shab, the author of this letter, went to Peterburg for some government matter, the Alter Rebbe asked him if he could go visit the cell that the Rebbe Shab asked of his father, asked the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, if he could go visit the cell that the Alter Rebbe was in and see if there's room for 3 people. Meaning, did they come as neshamas or did they come in a goof? He wanted to know, was there room there for 3 people? The Alter Rebbe's cell was in the side of a building. It was a wall on a river. The prison was on an island in a river. And the wall of the building went all the way down into the water. And the cell was in that wall. There had no window, nothing. Just in that for 53 days. But he knew what time it was, and they asked him how he knew that, and he told them that there's a different level of godly energy that powers every hour of the day. Yud Ke Vav Ke, so that a 3-letter word has 6 permutations. Aleph Beis Gimel, Aleph Gimel Beis, Beis Aleph Gimel, Beis Gimel Aleph, Gimel Beis Aleph, Gimel Aleph Beis, right? 6 permutations. 1 times 2 times 3. Right? A 4-letter root has 24 permutations. 1 times 2 times 3 times 4. But a 4-letter root that has 2 letters the same has 12 permutations. Yud Ke Vav Ke. So Yud Ke Vav Ke has 12 permutations. 12 power the day and 12 power the night. Same 12. So the Alter Rebbe knew also the 12 months of the year. Each month has its own permutation of Yud Ke Vav Ke. Av, it's K Vav Ke Yud, backwards. Everything's backwards. Everything's upside down. Everything's hidden. Nisan is Yud Ke Vav Ke. It's all straight, revealed. Right? Every month has its own permutation of Shem Havaya. That we talked about that word, the Sefer B'nai Yissaschar last. Didn't we talk about it? Right. So he talks about that a lot. He'll explain the tziruf of the Shem Hashem relative to every month. So the Alter Rebbe knew what time it was based on what level of godly light was being drawn into the world at that hour. So he knew when to say Shem Kriya Shema, he knew when it was light, when it was dark, when the days were passing. You and I would have a hard time keeping time in there. Unless, of course, we had a Rolex. It would be just fine. Even a Timex would work. Okay. So, Yud Tes Kislev, after the Alter Rebbe was let out of jail, so then it was absolutely clear that the time has come to reveal Tsarist Chassidus in the most powerful way. And that's why the Rebbe is saying what he's saying, Yeshayah, to this day. Now, any day, the way the Rebbeim relate to time is very, very interesting. Time is created. Time is a creation. It's an ethereal creation, like you can't touch it. Like space is easy. You can see space, you can touch space. It's very easy to measure space. Measuring time, well, the only way we know to measure time is by measuring the movement of bodies in space. We don't know how to measure time any other way. It's not like we can measure time inside time. We measure space inside space, right? But although, yeah, I guess you could measure space in terms of time. How far is that? 4-day walk. Okay, we sometimes do that. How long does it take to get there? 2 hours. Okay, we'll do that. But generally, space, we'll say it's 5 kilometers, which is a spatial measure, or miles. The Abishur created time and space. That means when the Rebbeim discuss time, they discuss it in a very, very fascinating way. When Chassidus discusses time. The 15th of Nisan isn't a special time because we got out of Mitzrayim. We got out of Mitzrayim on the 15th of Nisan because the 15th of Nisan is a very special time. Right? And those are 2 different ways of looking at time. And so when was the special quality of the 15th of Nisan revealed to everybody? When we got out of Mitzrayim, on that day, when it was revealed that was a very special place in time. Okay. Yud Tes Kislev, so the Rebbeim relate to all special events that have happened, that the event happens on a particular day because of the nature of the day. Not that the nature of the day is because of the event, but the event is because of the nature of the day. And where do we ever see Yud Tes Kislev mentioned anywhere? So it happens to be quite fascinating. And we didn't know this until fairly recently because it was not printed. There's a sefer called Shailas and Chuvas Min Hashamayim. Questions and answers Min Hashamayim, from heaven. Written by one of the Balei Tosfos. written by one of the people who's quoted in Taisvus, Rabbi Yitzchak of Liadi. He wrote a sefer called Shilas and Chuvas Minashamayim. What would he do? You're supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do this, I don't know, but he did this. He would think about a particular inyan in Torah and then write it down and put it under his pillow, and he would dream about the answer. And this is how he used it. So there are chuvas that we have. The tshuva, I'm trying to remember what the subject is. You can buy the book. I have the book somewhere. It's in my bookshelf somewhere there. Right? You can buy it. It's a small little book. Shilas and Chuvas Min Hashemayim, but written by one of the Balei Taisvus, right? Rashi's grandchildren. So there's a tshuva. I forget what he's talking about in the tshuva. I apologize. I should remember. Anyway, there's a certain issue that he's discussing, and at the end he says the answer. In the tshuva it says, I'm sorry, not that he says, but the answer that he got Min Hashemayim includes at the end of the tshuva that this was revealed to you on the very auspicious day and holy day, Yud Tes Kislev. Yom HaShlishi Yud Tes Kislev. Tuesday, Yud Tes Kislev. So 700 years before the Alter Rebbe was let out of jail, Rishon already talked about the fact that Yom HaShlishi Yud Tes Kislev was a very, very, very holy day, and he had been given that information from above. And so on that day, this amazing event happened, called the release of the Alter Rebbe, which meant that Chassidus was now able to be revealed in a way that it had never been revealed before. And that's how the Alter Rebbe understood his freedom, because that's what the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid told him when he was in prison.
But being that Tanya was written already previously, how does that work into this sort of like thinking? Because like Tanya is kind of like the baseline.
It's the Tsarist Russia of Chassidus, 100%. There's no question, but it also doesn't explain things as fully as Chassidus does afterwards, right? I mean, that was exactly the point. Until then, it was very, very terse and concise. So it's true. If you know a lot of Chassidus, Tanya is going to help you a tremendous amount. If you know less Chassidus, so then Tanya will help you less. That doesn't mean that there's not everything's there. It's all there. 100%. It's the Tsarist Russia of Chassidus. Right? And the questions are very, very good questions. There's no doubt about it. But it was all there, but it was all there in a form that was still not fully fleshed out. What's happened over the last, the Maimarim of Torah or the Kutei Torah, which are really the basis of just about every Maimer Chassidus that happened since. When did that happen? That happened afterwards. Right? Pages and pages and pages and pages explaining things in a way that had never been explained. Basic Torahs HaNefesh and Avodas Hashem, so that's Tanya, there's no question. Shar Yichud V'Emunah, the basics of the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, 100%. And yet the Rebbe Rashab will take the first chapter of Shar Yichud V'Emunah and it's a 15-page Maimon. The Mitler Rebbe will tell we talked about the Mitler Rebbe, I think, when we test Yud, right? When Yechiel Deitcher came to Mizrich, so he said a vort of 3 psukim in the Megillah, 3 psukim in Torah. He compared them. The Alter Rebbe explained that in 4 columns in Torah or in his Drushim on Purim. He took 6 psukim and that he had heard from Yechiel Deitcher. Yechiel Deitcher was the Baal Shem Tov's son-in-law, came to Mizrich, and the Alter was asked to go to his Purim Suda. So by the Maggid. So he went. So he heard a Torah, 3 psukim and 3 psukim. Just compared them. So these psukim and these psukim are the same. The Alter Rebbe explains that in 4 or 5 columns in Torah Or, and the Mitler Rebbe explains it in 97 chapters in Shari Or. Okay, so that's what happened after. Before, that wouldn't have happened. That level of explanation. Bring it down to a level that is truly, fully understandable. Right? Tanya seems very basic, but we do know that it's a hard book to. Personally, I never teach that. I don't think I understand it well enough to teach it. Right? No, seriously, I'm not. I won't teach that. When I first started getting into Chassidus, I did. So I was young and silly. I won't teach that. there's obviously certain parts of Tanya that I feel that I could teach, but to start the beginning of Tanya, teach the whole book, I don't feel I know it well enough to teach it. It's a hard book. There's so much in there. It's all said in shorthand, right? It's all there. It's Torah Shabbat, right? Learn the Torah without Rashi. Do you understand what's going on? They haven't got a clue, right? Really don't have a clue. Matter of fact, half the time you think that what's going on would be the opposite of what's actually going on, because you'd read it one way and really Rashi explains to you, no, that's not what's going on. You look at the words carefully and you'll see why they use that word, and that word means that, the word mirma doesn't mean trickery, it means, right? And it's not apologetics. Rashi's not apologizing. He's teaching what the Torah really means. Okay. So I would never know. Your question is a very, very good question. There is, I heard. I was listening to Brengen in my ears, from my piece of plastic the other day, and I didn't pay attention enough. But there is I have to find it again because I want to hear it. There is a statement that was made about, and it's so interesting because it was 2 years later. There's a statement made about the incredible in the world that Tanya brought about, and it was mayor the hearts of the Chassidim for 2 years. The simple pshat is they were excited about it for 2 years, but also it's Yud Tes Kislev happened 2 years later. And who knows if that might not have been part of the kitrug, right? Like, what are you doing, writing a book like this? That also might have been. Right? I've never seen anybody say that beferish, but why not? It was written before. And your question is a very good question. It's a question that everybody asks. Wait a minute, hold on a second. If Tanya's written, isn't it all there? Well, yes, but no. Chassidus is so much fuller now than just reading Tanya. It's all there, but it's just been explained and explained and explained and explained.
Didn't the Alter Rebbe view, though, his release from prison as kind of like the divine stamp of approval on what he had written?
Absolutely, 100%. And not only what he had done, but what he was supposed to do in the future.
Yeah.
Because that's what the Maggid and what he said to the Maggid and the Baal Shem Tov. He told this to the Chassidim. That I asked, should I stop? And they said, no. With more intensity, more power. Go weiter. And there's no question that it's completely changed the Jewish world. The unbelievable opposition at the beginning, incredible opposition. They wanted to kill it was not Jews that started the slander against, it was not Goyim who started the slander against Alter Rebbe. It was God-fearing Jews who thought that this was going to destroy Judaism, and they wanted the Alter Rebbe killed. This is like heavy stuff. And these were God-fearing people. Were they wrong? They were dead wrong. There's no doubt about that. Because if you look at the history of the Jewish people since Chassidus showed up, the Chassidim have managed to maintain the Yiddishkeit. So it's not that Chassidus was taking people away from Torah and mitzvahs, bringing people closer to Torah and mitzvahs. There's no question. No question about that. And most of the frum Jews in Poland in 1939 were Chassidim. Most of the Jews in Russia in 1920, before they all started being rounded up and killed, etc., were Chassidim. Now there were all sorts of other frum Jews, but what was a frum Jew in Russia in 1935? What was he called? The greatest accolade that Lubavitch could ever be given. The Soviets referred to a God-fearing Jew as a Shneur. Now they weren't all Lubavitcher Chassidim, there were all sorts of frum people, but he was called a Shneur. Why? Because what was obvious? Who was fighting tooth and nail more than anybody else? And who could they not beat? The Shneur. This couldn't beat the Shneur. He finally just, let him out of jail, said, go, just leave. So he left. The Rebbe was clear that the Rebbe couldn't stay there. They would continue hounding him. So we left, went to Poland, went to first Latvia, then Poland. Let's finish the letter. Mimamakim krasicha vaya, another pasuk. From the depths I call out to you, Hashem. Lahamshich, this is now the Rebbe davening. Right? Lahamshich, bechinas emek, to draw down the emek, the depth. Upnimius teres Hashem, mitzvahs Hashem, to draw down the true depth of the inner meaning of the Torah and the mitzvahs. Mibechinas pnimis va'atzmas hareinsei baruch hu, that comes from the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself. Sheyair, that should illuminate b'pnimius nafshenu, in the innermost chambers of our soul, asher kol atzmeisenu, that our whole being, right? Zaleimar, kol mitziusenu, our whole existence, ha'etzem, the essence of our existence, v'yispashtus, and the expression of our existence as it exists down here in a body in Olam Hazeh. You, a love, Yisbarach Levad, all of it will be dedicated to Hashem. Will be a love to Him alone. Legarish mi'itanu, to expel from amongst us kol midah ra, any negative character trait, the maguna, mi'amidas sativius, from the natural character traits of the Nefesh Bahamis. Ki'im, but rather kol asiyasenu, all of our actions, vinyanenu, and all of our matters. Hein baveda, those involved in direct service of God. Hainu, what does that mean? Tefillah, Torah, mitzvahs, davening, learning, mitzvahs. V'hein binyanei elam, and also those things that we are involved in the world, the muchrachim that are necessary, l'kiyum haguf, in order to take care of our body and stay alive, to make a living, eat, drink, sleep. All of them, you b'kavana amitis, they should all be with the true intention, Hashem Shemayim, for the sake of heaven, Asher chofetz Hashem, that the Eibishter desires. Hashem Yisbarach Avarachamim, and Kadosh Baruch Hu, our merciful Father, Yirachem Aleinu, should have mercy on us. Yanichenu b'derech hateva v'yashara, and He should guide us in a good and straight way. Yasha yechsu paneim, and ultimately we will see His face in this righteousness. Whoa. That's pretty serious. Rabbi Shab's not fooling around. He's pretty religious, that's pretty religious. Right? I mean, who are we? What are we? Right? There's so many things. Just a quick idea, because we have 10 minutes, so we can bring about this a little bit. This letter is really, there's more to the letter. This is obviously a very powerful part of it that was this is the part of the letter that was decided to put in to Hayom Yom, and this is something that, when you say Hayom Yom on Friday morning, so you should read the letter also. That's part of the Hayom Yom on Yud Tes Kislev, is to read this letter before you read Hayom Yom, as part of your preparation for davening. There's a number, when you say Rosh Hashanah, so by definition you mean there's a Chiddush. Mm-hmm. It's the beginning of something. So the beginning of something means there's something now that there wasn't before, exactly. I mean, on some level. So there are many things that can be said about that relative to Chassidus in general, Chassidus Chabad in particular. Perhaps one of the most important, I don't know, who knows? I'm not going to vote on that one, but certainly something that's extremely important, and it breathes through the Chassidus of all of the Rebbeim. It's based on a very famous Maimer Chazal. The Baal Shem Tov in general, and the Rebbeim of our Rebbeim of each generation have emphasized a very, very important Chiddush in the way we look at the world. What's the single most important point? Until the Baal Shem Tov, you would say Torah. The Torah is the single purpose of all existence. And that a Yid is a Yid by virtue of the fact that they keep Torah and mitzvahs. And that's how you would define a Jew. A Jew is someone who keeps Torah and mitzvahs. The Baal Shem Tov came along and said, no, the single most powerful point in all of reality, outside of the Eibishter, obviously, is the Yid. It's the Jew. And the Jew isn't a Jew because he keeps Torah and mitzvahs. The Jew isn't holy because he keeps Torah and mitzvahs. He keeps Torah and mitzvahs because he's a Jew, because he's holy. And that's a huge difference. That's a huge difference. What's it based on? What do the Rebbeim quote all the time? So there's two Midrashim. First Rashi, right at the beginning of Torah. First pasuk, it's not the first Rashi, but the first pasuk in the Torah, it says, everybody knows the first pasuk. Bereshis bara Elokim es Hashemayim v'haaretz. Bereshis, word that no one understands. First word in the Torah is a word that no one understands. Okay. Here, welcome to the world of Torah. Not even that stuff you think you understand, you also don't understand that. But okay, this one you really no one understands, right? So what's one of the pshatim Rashi's? Base ratios, two beginnings. Two things are first. There are two things that precede the world. What are those two things? Torah of Israel. The Torah and the Jewish people. The neshamas of the Jewish people. And for their sake, the whole Torah was created. The whole world was created. Okay. So that's Rashi, that's Bereshis Rabbah. In Tanya de Eliyahu, which is a medrash that, it's an amazing medrash because it quotes all sorts of interesting discussions that Eliyahu Navi had with himself to a certain degree. So Eliyahu Navi asks a question, of those two, which is first? It says there's two things, so which came first? So Eliyahu Navi comes to the conclusion that what comes first? Israel. Why? What does it say in the Torah? Daber el b'nei Israel, speak to the Jewish people. Who's the Torah written for? For the Jewish people, who so to speak are first. I mean, first is this people, and that what's the difference? What difference does it mean? Who's first? Well, it's exactly that point in the Baal Shem Tov. If the Torah is first, then what the Eibishter really cares about is the Torah. And what's a Jew? A Jew is that person who's sent down into Eilam Hazeh to guard the Torah and keep the Torah and do that which is it's all true, right? Not the question, this isn't true. A Jew's sent to the world to keep the Torah, do the Torah, but there's one part of what I'm about to say that's not true. And a Jew who doesn't do that, so he's a brachal of Atala. It's just a waste of energy because he was sent down here to keep the Torah. And if he doesn't do that, so then it's of no use whatsoever. That's what you might say if all there was Bereshis Rabbah, which is first. But if the Yid is first, then what's the ultimate? What's the apple of the Eibishter's eye? Is the Yid. What's the Torah? The Torah is that which is given to the Yid in order to express who he really is, even down here in Eilam Hazeh. To connect to the essence of his being down here in Eilam Hazeh. There's only one way a Jew can express who he really is, and that's through keeping Torah mitzvahs. There is no other way. There might be all sorts of interesting things that we can do down here in the world and that are very useful for us and for other people, but the only way we can connect to what the Rebbe just said, to connect to the ultimate existence is through Torah and mitzvahs. There is no other way. We can think up anything we want. It won't work. What about Chas V'Shalom, a Yid who doesn't keep Torah and mitzvahs? Still a Yid. He's no less Jewish than Moshe Rabbeinu. He's no less holy than Moshe Rabbeinu. It's an unbelievable tragedy that Jew isn't expressing who he really is, so he's acting in a way that's completely contrary to the essence of his being. That's true. Right? And hopefully you can touch that Jew and get him back onto a place where he's connected to who he really is, as opposed to acting in a way like a dog licking his paw and cleaning his face all day like a cat. He's a dog, he's not a cat. Act like a dog, run around, chase the ball, drool all over the place. No, he thinks he's a cat. He looks at you askance. He's not friendly. Right? If he thinks it's worth his while, he might sit next to you if you scratch him and make him purr. But he's really not interested in you. He's interested in himself. The dog, you're the center of his world. He loves you. Okay, so this dog thinks he's a cat, and he's just like, what's wrong with you? Okay, so there can be a Jew who thinks he's not a Jew. Or he does say a Jew, but you don't have to do anything to be a Jew. Okay, but that's not true. I have to express who I am. So it's the only way to express who we are is through Torah mitzvahs. The most powerful expression of that is taka through Pnimis Torah. That's what the Rebbe is explaining. There's a revelation of an even more powerful expression of who we are. That's the Yechida Shabbat that helps reveal the Yechida in the Jew. That's the Rebbe's famous Sikha in Yonah Tsarist Russia. The Rebbe said in Yud Tes Kislev, Tavshin Chav Vav, right, which is what? 59 years ago. So you guys do the math. 20, no, not 20, whatever. Chav Vav, I don't know. What is that? In 1965. 1965, Yud Tes Kislev, the Rebbe said the famous, in Yonah Tsarist Russia, on the essence of Chassidus is how it's translated. And the Rebbe explains that what's Chassidus? There's Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Soid, and then there's it's not a fifth level. I mean, it is, but it's the etzem of every level. The etzem of Pshat, the etzem of Drush, the etzem of Remez, the etzem of Soid. Chassidus isn't Soid. Soid is Kabbalah. Chassidus is the etzem of the Kabbalah, the etzem of the Pshat. Right? And the Rebbe explains, he takes a one mitzvah, made the ani, and explains it on all 4 levels and what the etzem of each of those 4 levels is. It's astounding. When Rav Soloveitchik, when the Sikha came out, so Rav Soloveitchik, Olav Shalom, Rav Soloveitchik was the Rosh Yeshiva in Yeshiva University, who was just an indescribable Jew. So when he heard about this Sikha, so he had a chavrusa Friday nights with his son-in-law, which was a Torsky. His son-in-law Torsky, he worked in Brown University, but he in Providence, which is close to Boston. So Rav Soloveitchik taught in YU, but he lived in Boston. He had a shul in Boston. He used to fly back and forth. His name was Yosef Ber Soloveitchik. He wrote a famous book called The Lonely Man of Faith. And what was his plane ticket? What was the name on his plane ticket when he used to fly from New York to Boston? Joe Solo. He also had a very good sense of humor. My brother knew someone who was a student in YU. I never knew the guy, but he was older than me. So he was a student in YU in the Rav's class. And once the Rav came up to him after Gemara Shir, the Rav Soloveitchik was known to give one of the two. There was a machlekes between people here in Eretz Yisrael and people in America who gave the best Gemara Shir in the world. Was it Rav Soloveitchik or was it Rav Shmulevitz in Mir? That was his Gemara Shir. So my brother knew another guy who I also never met. He left before my time, but a guy named Yaakov Love. Yaakov Love learned here and always was poo-pooing the Americans who would talk about Rav Soloveitchik, and he learned in the Mir and he loved it. And he once went to New York. They said, go to the Rav Shir once. You go to a Shir. He stayed for 15 years. He sat in the Rav Shir for 15 years. Right? He never heard anything. He sat never heard anything like this in my life. This is like unbelievable. My brother once went and the Rav said something, and Yaakov said, well, what about the Ritva and Ksuvas? So Rav Soloveitchik said, look at the Rashba. So he said, yeah, but okay, that Rashba, but then there's the Rashba in Yevomis. It's completely different. Rav Soloveitchik says, Tais was there, explains it all, don't worry about it. And the two of them are going back and forth like this with these codes that no one in the room understood. That was Yaakov Love. So that was Rav Soloveitchik also, but Yaakov Love was like, he could at least hang in there a little bit. So Rav Soloveitchik heard that this sikh had come out. He called up his son-in-law and said, get some sleep Friday. I don't know whether we're sleeping Friday night because we're going to learn this sikh of the Lubavitch Rebbe. And they learned the sikh from the beginning to the end. And Rav Kursky wrote the Rebbe a letter and asked the Rebbe to, which is, what he asked is ridiculous, okay, Beseder, but it's still, you just get a feeling of how important they thought this was. Tversky wrote the Rebbe a letter and asked the Rebbe to please stop doing everything the Rebbe is doing and explain every mitzvah in the Torah the way the Rebbe explained Meida'ani, because the Rebbe is the only person who's ever been able to do that, and he will open up Torah and mitzvahs in a way that no one has ever understood before, and it will be such an unbelievable service to the Jewish people. 6 months later, he got a letter back from the Rebbe. Thank you very much for your letter. I appreciate your advice, but I don't have the time. That was the end of that. But he wanted to, okay, forget Lubavitch. Can you please just explain all of the mitzvahs the way you explained Meidani there? And then we'll actually know something. So I don't know why. How did we get to Rav Soloveitchik? I don't remember. Anyway, about the pnimis of everything. Okay, so what? So your yechida, the yechida of your nefesh is the ultimate purpose of all creation. The etzem of your soul. That's really the dearest thing, right? I think we told the story once, right? That Rabbi Sharfstein and Rabbi Edelman who were young Bochrim at the time. Our Rebbe came down, I think we talked about this. Our Rebbe came down from the Frierdiker Rebbe one day, saw them in the lobby in 770 and said, I just heard something amazing from the Rebbe, do you want to hear it? So they said yes. Our Rebbe was being very, very accepting to the Yidden who had come from Europe after the war, and even though these Yidden had given up Yiddishkeit, they still, all they knew was Yiddishkeit, so if they wanted to connect to someone or talk to someone, what would they do? They'd go to a shul. I mean, that's all they knew. So they would come into 770. They go to other shuls in Brooklyn also. They'd come into 770. And there were people who thought that it might not be a good idea to accept them warmly, because maybe then you're sort of saying that you approve of the decisions they've made in life. And the Rebbe thought that they should be accepted warmly. But there were people who disagreed with the Rebbe, so the Rebbe went to ask the Frierdiker Rebbe what to do. Who's right? Should the Rebbe accept them warmly, or should they, sort of not? Because then it looks like you're condoning what they're doing. So the Frierdiker Rebbe told the Rebbe that a parent loves every child equally. Mm-hmm. But if a parent has a child who is handicapped, so the parent has a special place in their heart for that child. That doesn't mean he loves that child more than anybody else, but there's a special place in the parent's heart for that child because of the difficulties that child experiences in life. The Frierdiker Rebbe then said to the Rebbe, every Jew is the Eibishter's child, but a Jew who doesn't put on tefillin is like a Jew without an arm. It's like a handicapped Jew, and he has a special place in the eyes of the Eibishter. Wow. That doesn't mean stop putting on tefillin. That means wow. And that's Chassidus. That is more than anything the Chiddush of Chassidus. That the single most important thing in all of reality is a Yid. More important than Torah. That doesn't mean we don't keep the Torah. Of course the Torah is important. So that means a person can hear it and turn it into absolute idiocy. The Torah is what he can't do anything in Olam Hazeh without the Torah. But when you look at another Jew who might not be as frum as you, or might not be as focused on it, how do you look at them? That thing you're looking at is the dearest thing in the eyes of the Eibishter. And that person can be frum, maybe just not as frum as you, and not as Chassidish as you, which itself is not Chassidish, but that they even think those thoughts. But okay, Beseder. But what's that Jew? The dearest thing in the eyes of the Eibishter. And that point is as much as anything else the single most important point in Chassidus. Of course, Chassidus is all about you and I becoming, what the Rebbe is talking about here, becoming Yidden, who are more directly connected to the Eibishter, etc., etc. But on a certain level, I know how it's all the same. Why is it that you and I think we could actually live up to this? Because we have a Chiddush b'nefesh. Because we are what we are. If I'm not what Chassidus tells me I am, and if I'm not what Chassidus tells me a Jew is, and I happen to be one of those things called a Jew, then how could I possibly ascribe to this, what the Rebbe just described? How could I possibly challenge myself to be someone who's honestly connected to the Eibishter? I'm just, bumbling around in Olam Hazeh, grinding up a bunch of time, doing good, lots of good stuff, and that's chas v'shalom, not right? Not destroying the world, right? Hopefully doing all sorts of positive things and doing some mitzvahs and learning some Torah and trying to make a living and am I basically a good guy? Yeah, I certainly don't think I'm a Genghis Khan. I'm basically a positive person who's trying to do good. Can I really be someone who lives Elokus? Nah, come on. It's not true. That's not true. Why? Because I'm no different than any other Jew. When I look at another Jew, what am I supposed to see? Someone who's basically just a little piece of God walking around in a body. Okay. How about the guy whose teeth I brush? What about him? No, I don't believe in him. Because I know him too well. I don't know you. I don't know what your Yetzer Hara is telling me. I have no clue. So all I see is never a case. I want a Jew. Unbelievable. Right? What about me? Let's not go there. It's embarrassing. Oh, no. This is just as shayach to me as it is to anybody else, which is really amazing. So we're talking about that story with, Shlomi Schwartz and the guy who went to Crown Heights from one discussion on the Berkeley campus, right? Okay, so what? He had a Yechidus b'nefesh that exploded when he took the lulav, and exploded even more when he went to Simchas Torah by the Rebbe, and he's still in Crown Heights. Okay. I have the same Yechidah. You have the same Yechidah. That story can be about us. It doesn't have to be about him. You have to be some drugged up hippie on Berkeley campus in order to have an explosion of Yechidus b'nefesh. Right? We all have it. That's what's the Rebbe saying right here. What reveals it? Yechidah Shabbatara, which is Chassidus. Gives us a fighting chance. The Rebbeim give us a fighting chance to actually live godliness in our lives, which is an incredible gift. They took an unbelievable amount of their time to teach us all this. And if we appreciate it, we can actually get somewhere. And get somewhere not mitzad I'm getting somewhere, mitzad the fact that truth's truth. And the more we can connect to it, the more exciting life is in general. For us, but also just in general. We bring about a revelation of God in the world, because if there's God banging around in there's God in the world, because you're a part of the world. And then what? Then you can ultimately bring Mashiach, because Mashiach is just about God being revealed in the world. That's what it's about. And that's what this is the Torah about. This is what the Baal Shem Tov's Torah is all about, revealing Mashiach. We'll start a new mimer tomorrow.
Thank you.
And, it's a mimer. It's not easy, but it's I think we can do it. It's a Chanukah mimer where the Rebbe discusses 3 different levels of the unity of God.